Hello, friends. This is Eric, the mind control guy. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm not going to do a story on the Storm Area 51 thing. I was going to do it the day it happened or the day after. After seeing the internet, YouTube videos, there was so much of it done, and it was just a fizzle. Like 75 people showed up at the gate at the base. Two knuckleheads got arrested. The guards were cool. Everybody was basically playing nice. And they decided it would be in their best interest if they did not bother the base. Now, I got that out of the way. I'm here to talk about something else. See that? It says the M.I.B S are S.O.B S. And I don't hesitate to say that. Because I've had a real life encounter with the M.I.B S. And that's right, they're S.O.B.S. Now, my encounter had nothing to do with UFOs or even researching UFOs. My encounter had to do with after I started getting my memory back in 2004. I started having all kinds of horrific flashbacks about the mind altering research study, which was a mind control project that I unfortunately was a test subject for, that came after the Central Intelligence Agency's legendary MK Ultra. And for those of you that do not know what MK Ultra stands for, it stands for Manufacturing Killers Utilizing Lethal Tradecraft Requiring Assassinations. That's what it actually stood for. Take an ordinary man, turn him into an assassin without his knowledge and against his will. Not like a professional sniper or something. A mind control killer don't even know they're doing it. That's the difference. Anyway, with that said, the M.I.B.S. My story I told not too many weeks ago on the late night radio show Coast to Coast AM. I told the George Norrie. And now I'm going to tell it to you folks. In 2006 or 2007, I started asking people who I thought might have been in the know about a vision I was having. There's no possible way it could have been a memory, because there's no possible way I could have been there. But it was like I was standing there watching it, this scene that I'm going to tell you about. Now, folks out there like to poo-poo and we don't believe it, fake, all the usual dumb stuff that what I call swaggering, arrogant skeptics that make an effort not to believe in anything, regardless of what it is. They just don't believe. Well, to hell with those people. I have no respect for them whatsoever. Just because somebody doesn't have the hardcore, hard physical evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen. Like the term I use, just because you didn't have your Rodney King video doesn't mean the event didn't happen. But there are terms out there that people use. Some have been demonized so bad that soon as you use the word, people instantaneously do not want to believe a single syllable that comes out of your mouth. Unfortunately, because of people who are deliberate frauds and they just make stuff up, they muddy the waters to where now credible people aren't even believed anymore. But there's other terms. You've heard of a mother's instinct or mother's intuition. You've heard, man, I've got a gut feeling about this. Man, I just got a feeling about this. Or I have a gut instinct, or it's just a hunch. That's just basically the same thing as other words that have been demonized by swaggering, arrogant skeptics because of people who are blatant and deliberate frauds. Now, with all that said, when I was getting my memory back, starting in 2004, June of 2004, 20 years after it all began for me anyway. When I say after it all began, I mean when I was a young soldier. I got to Fort Bragg in April of 1984. They went to work on me in June of 1984, and I was brought in as a test subject to the mind-altering research study. And anyway, they did horrific stuff to myself and my fellow troops before and after. And the things that were done to us made the stuff that allegedly happened at Abu Ghraib seem like a day at Disneyland by comparison. A lot of the stuff that happened has been confirmed to me by people who were prior military intelligence, prior special forces. Special forces was the security personnel for the mind-altering research study project. And some of the tests they did to us, guys who go through U.S. Army Ranger training. I don't know if they still do today in 2019, but apparently they did back in 1984 when I went through the project. Now, these guys go through Army Ranger training, whether they be Rangers, SEALs, Special Forces, Marine Recon, all that kind of stuff. You got to be one tough individual, physically as well as have it up here. And the stuff that those guys went through in Army Ranger training, they have what they call a fear factor phase that is not acknowledged to the public, but was admitted to me by a guy who was a former Special Forces Ranger when he opened up to me about what he knew about what happened to me in the mind-altering research study. The stuff that they went through in the fear factor phase, we did, and a hell of a lot more. But the difference is they knew they were going through it, and we didn't. So anyway, when I was getting my memory back of all this horrific stuff, it all began in the mind-altering research study. And anyway, later on, I started getting additional memories back of other projects that we were loaned out, or as I call it, hoard out, to all these different agencies and different research projects. They need a test subject. Hey, let's get some of the boys from the mind-altering research study, acronymed the MARS project. Now, there's been a lot of things that have been acronymed MARS, like military affiliated radio station, just for one. And I don't know, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of things that are acronym MARS. But the one I was in was also acronym MARS, but good luck finding anything about it. Anyway, as I was getting my memory back, I was also seeing other things that I had nothing to do with, as the one I'm about to tell you now, which is why when I start asking about it, I end up having an unfortunate encounter with the M.I.B. And what this was apparently back in 1993, then Senator John Glenn, who is now deceased, as well as Mr. John Young, who is now deceased. They were both astronauts. And what I remember seeing, like I was standing there watching it, but there's no possible way I could have been there. This was at Cape Canaveral, apparently, where this happened at. And as I was, tapped in, apparently, some call it remote viewing, where you can see something and hear something without being there. You don't know how you do it, you just do. And it's just crystal clear as you looking at me right now. That's how crystal clear what I thought was a memory turned out to be something I had tapped into, and I was watching without being there. And it happened years before. But apparently sometime, I think it was around 1993, in Cape Canaveral, there was a place they called the Quiet Room, where deals are made and discussions are talked about and stuff, where they call it secret, classified, whatever word they want to use. What I remember seeing is then Senator John Glenn and John Young sitting out there. There was a table sitting there. There was three guys in dark suits and shades and red ties. Your stereotypical Men in Black. And what I remember is then Senator John Glenn, they handed him a manila envelope. And I'm just going to use a book, to kind of recreate what I saw. This book I have right here, say this is the manila envelope. And he pulled these papers out and he was reading them like this. And he goes, and he looked over at John Young, and John Young had his elbows on this table, kind of like this. And John Glenn slowly took his glasses off and went, "And you're going along with this?" John Young's reaction was like, ain't nothing I can do, man. My hands are tied. So then John Glenn, as he had these papers in his hand and his glasses like this, turned around and looked at these three men in black. And they said, "Now, Mr. Senator, we really need your approval on this, but if you don't want to cooperate and don't want to approve this, well, we'd really hate to see you end up in a car crash or a plane crash or have an early stroke or heart attack. So we really need your signature on this." With great reluctancy, John Glenn, senator at the time, signed whatever it was they needed to sign, turned around and just walked out the room. I have no idea what was in those papers. And for some reason, I tapped in and was watching this event take full happen. Years after it happened, for some reason, I'm looking to see what happened. I was able to see what happened without even trying. All of a sudden, boom, it just came into my head one day. Now, this event, I think, happened about 1993. Fast forward over a decade later. As I was getting my memory back in 1984, I was remembering all the really nasty stuff that happened. But years later, I started remembering other things. And then I started tapping in and seeing things without realizing I was doing it. So, a feller I knew who had been in military intelligence, another one who had been in DOD, who was also a remote viewer, and another guy who had been around the world of intel for a long time. I called these three individuals at different times and started asking about it. Any idea what this could be about? None of them really knew what this could possibly be about. Shortly after I started calling people who I thought might know something about what did they threaten John Glenn about, what was this all about, next thing you know, as some of you who've watched my videos know or heard me on Coast to Coast AM know that I am a trucker by trade. I've been a trucker for over 27 years. I was coming back from Lafayette, Indiana on I-65. I was wide awake. It was in the wee hours of the morning at night. I was wide awake. Next thing you know, it's like I came out of some kind of a trance or something. I'm driving down the road and I have no idea where I'm at. What the hell? I'm way up on Interstate 65, way north of Indianapolis. And next thing you know, I have no idea where I'm at. I'm driving down the road and have no idea where I'm at. And then I'm looking for signs, frantically looking for signs, trying to figure out where I'm at. Because this isn't the first time this has happened to me. Driving down the road, wide awake, and all of a sudden, in the blink of an eye, I'm 20-some miles down the road and had no idea how I got there. This kind of stuff has actually happened to me. And anyway, so then I saw a sign. I said, whoa, okay, I'm on 465. Wow, where'd all those miles go? And next thing you know, I come out of a second trance. After I realized where I was on the western side of Indianapolis on 465, up in the mid to north part of I-465. Next thing you know, I come out of another trance-like state, driving. I'm on the 74 south of Indianapolis, I have already passed my terminal, and I'm getting ready to pass the entire town. I get fixing to see a sign that says exit 116. Whoa! So I kind of hit the brakes, and I got off and come around to the stop sign, and I'm just looking around going, what the hell just happened? I didn't know what had happened to me. So anyway, I got turned around. I went back up to my terminal, dropped the trailer, turned in the paperwork, drove home. I lived in Greensburg, Indiana at the time. I went home and went to sleep. I started having deja vu almost right away when I was asleep. I went to sleep, and then I started remembering what happened. However they do it, the M.I.B got me to pull over. And they got right in my face. And they said, shut up about the Cape. Quit asking about the Cape. Whoa. And then some people started driving by and going, whoa, what the hell's going on? Because I guess there must have been too much light around. And so, however they do it, they had me get back in my truck and continue driving. And that's when I came out of my first trance. I-74, south of I-65, is a little bit darker. There's not as much light down there. And so they had me pull over again. This was where it was all dark. And I was standing outside my truck, just like the first time, and they're in my face saying, look, shut up about the Cape. Quit asking about the Cape. Knock it off. And as people have said in the past that have had M.I.B experiences, that's exactly what I did. I quit asking about the Cape. I quit talking about the Cape. I just forgot about it until not too many weeks ago. And I decided, to hell with it, I'm going to tell my story. And I called Coast to Coast AM. I talked to George Norrie, and I told my story. A whole lot of people heard about it. And now I'm telling you all. But John Glenn is no longer alive. John Young is no longer alive. So those two men who were involved, they cannot do anything to hurt them. And I have not encountered the M.I.B since. Now I'm making this video. I might encounter him again. I don't know. But I wanted to get my story out. Something else I wanted to say about the M.I.B. In the documentary videos I've been watching, the interviews that I've seen, books I'm reading, one thing stands out about the M.I.B. And more than one actually, but the skin. They say the skin doesn't even look like real skin. And I got to thinking about what these people were saying. It's almost like some kind of a texture, but not like human skin. Kind of like an animatronic. An animatronic robot. Disney's had them for a long time. You know, robots, robotic type entities. And they move. And they say when the M.I.B walk, they're kind of like clumsy. And they talk in a monotone voice, almost robotic. And the people who notice the joints on them doesn't even look like the wrists bend. This kind of texture, wrists don't bend. Everything is so smooth, there ain't no hair on them anywhere. And they talk with a monotone voice. I'm convinced that the M.I.B, these kind of M.I.B, are actually some kind of cyborg. Just like we saw many years ago in the movie The Terminator with former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. A very human-like robotic entity with a human-type cover on him, and the skin cover is apparently not real skin. I'm not even sure what word to use as far, because I'm not familiar with the terminology for the texture that covers a animatronic robot. But all things considered, I think the M.I.B are actually some kind of a cyborg. Now, who made these cyborgs, that remains to be seen. I have no idea who did it. I have no idea who has made these cyborgs that we know today as the Men in Black that scare people into silence. I know they scared me into silence. And reading these other people's books and watching these interviews, I can relate because it happened to me. So that's why I had this shirt made. The M.I.B S are S.O.B S. I make no apology saying it. And anybody who wants to question me about it all you want to. No problem. I'm just waiting to see if I have another encounter with a M.I.B now that I'm a lot more awake than what I used to be. And unfortunately, usually it's not until years later after these incident happens to people that people do become a lot more awake and a lot more aware. And then unfortunately they never have those incidents again. So they can react how they should have reacted. But when it first happens, you don't know what's going on. But now after we're awake, it's like, yeah, come on, you sons of bitches. I want to encounter you guys again. Now they don't show up. Now that I've made this video, I may encounter the M.I.B again. And if I do, I invite it. I invite the M.I.Bs. Come and get me, bro. I'm no longer afraid of you bastards. I'm no longer afraid. I'm awake. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, I got to get to work, people. Thank you for watching this video. I know it was kind of long. I had a lot of things that needed to be said. So anybody that wants to comment, please do. If you want to talk to me personally, we can arrange that. Anyway, this is Eric the Mind Control Guy signing off for now on this video entitled The M.I.B S are S.O.B S. Thank you.